The Center for Human Systems presents the Leadership and Self-Mastery Program. This is Course 3, Getting the Support You Need for Success. Module 1, The Importance and the Problem of Support.
Welcome back. This course is called Getting the Support You Need. My name is Ronnie Gale, and I'm here with Michael Broom, the organizational and development guru whose expertise underlies all of these courses. Hello, Michael.
Hello, Ronnie. How are you today?
I am peachy keen. So this course is on support systems, and it has 2 modules. Can you describe them for us?
Sure. The first module will cover why support systems are important, the problems we have with them, and the 2 types of support systems that all leaders need for support. This module in particular will cover personal support. The second module will cover building a critical mass of support to accomplish our goals. Since this is the first module, shall we get started?
All righty then, let's get started. What is the big idea of this module?
As a part of human systems, we've mentioned the fact that no one has accomplished anything of significance by themselves. It follows then that to accomplish the things we wish as leaders, that we need assistance. We also mentioned that individuals consistently will succeed or fail only with the assistance or support of their human systems. That support can take many forms: thinking assistance, emotional assistance, physical assistance, influence assistance, problem-solving assistance. The list can get pretty long. That assistance can come from many places: our employees, our colleagues, our mentors, our friends, and our families. Of course, there are also our doctors, lawyers, accountants, and psychotherapists as well. If you add them all together, we have what we call a personal support system. They are critical to our success, though we are mostly unconscious about them.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. You've described what a support system is and all the different types of people that are maybe in our support system, and that's what we're going to be talking about more in this module. Just to go back to that second module, it's about how you use your support system to get a critical mass for change. Is that right?
Yes. It's about change, and it's also about how to build a support system within an organization to accomplish our goals in general. That support system may or may not include some folks in your personal support system.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. So you say that support systems are critical to our success, and yet we're unconscious about them for the most part. Now, why is that?
Sure. Mostly we are unconscious about the support that is around us, just as we are unconscious about our human systems in general. The same belief in individualism that keeps us from seeing and understanding human systems also keeps us from utilizing our support systems more intentionally and useful. As we've seen in our conscious use of self course, when we are not conscious, we can create problems for ourselves that could easily be avoided. This is especially true for leaders who often have the belief that everything must rest on their shoulders, who do not understand that their employees, their followers, are a part of their support system. Many even have the notion that it is lonely at the top. How often have you heard that phrase?
Yeah, I've heard it a lot, that it's lonely at the top, but you just said something about employees or followers and how they're, especially employees, and how they're a part of the support system. I think leaders feel lonely at the top because they feel like everyone in their organization is looking to them for leadership and possibly reacting to their every word. If the leader says, hey, I have a great idea and we should do this thing, a lot of people scurry and do that thing. Yet you suggest these very same people, the employees, and the organization are the leader's support system. That, I don't know, for some reason that feels like a contradiction to me, Michael.
Well, don't quite know why, so let me go at it this way. Certainly, as you say, people do react to every word of their leaders. They do want to follow their leaders. And if their leader is a good one, they are more than willing to support them as well. In fact, they want to support them because that's why they are there in the first place. I've had bosses where I very much noticed their every move and statements. They were my authority figures, and I supported them very well as well. That the purpose of having followers is to support the leader to accomplish their goals. So, in fact, a leader cannot accomplish their goals without the support of their followers. Leaders who do not understand that will become lonely at the top. They will generally feel pretty insecure there, and they're not the leader that most of us would want.
Okay, I buy that. I buy that employees are part of your support system in terms of accomplishing your goals. I think where I'm struggling, and I'm just going to ask you to clarify this one more time, is around this idea of if I'm a leader, my employees are part of my personal support system. That's where I'm like still struggling a little bit. Can you say more about that?
Sure. Leaders who are willing to just be the human beings that they are more likely to have followers than the leader who wants to present himself as having all the answers for everything. I am infallible. I don't need any personal support, because nobody buys it in the first place. Now, the leader who will even shed a tear occasionally, folks go, oh, he's a real human being. It makes a big difference to come across as a human being with all the warts thereby. I will trust that person than the guy or the woman who wants to present themselves as knowing everything and having all the answers. Because it's like, no way, Jose. Does it help?
Yeah, actually, that helps a lot. I think the word that you hear bandied about in organizational development, a lot in leadership development, is this idea of authenticity. And so what you're saying is authenticity is about being human, and being human is about showing vulnerability and weakness in asking for not just organizational support, but personal support as well in accomplishing one's goals. Thank you for clarifying.
It's important that I want to change the word weakness.
Okay.
That tears are not necessarily a show of weakness. If I have an issue that I'm struggling to solve by myself, I don't think that's a weakness. In fact, it's the strength to ask for the help that shows you how strong I am. If I'm afraid of sharing the difficulties that I'm having, if I see those as weaknesses, then my ego will say, don't share those. But as a human being, knowing that I cannot do everything all by myself, that I will have issues and problems where I could use a sounding board, somebody to think with, somebody just to hear how really frustrated I am right now. That's the authenticity that you're talking about. And I see it as a strength. It's a sign of someone with a fairly strong ego rather than somebody who wants to hide their weaknesses, because I don't see them as weaknesses at all.
That is an excellent point. Thank you. My bias is being corrected as we speak, and I will adjust my thinking around tears as weaknesses.
Sounds like you may have taken that a little personally, Ronnie. What's going on?
No, not at all, Michael.
Mm-hmm.
But let's move on. let's move on.
Okay.
Let's talk about some of the ways that our lack of attention to our support system gets in our way.
Yes. Let's use our 3 keys from conscious use of self to do this. Remember, intention, connection, and ego management. Let's start off with intention. If we are not conscious about our support systems, we will have no intention about them, even though they are critical to our success. Accordingly, we tend not to use our support system when we need them most. And many of us have woefully underdeveloped support systems. We can also abuse our support systems. Think about the workaholics who give their significant others and children short shrift. The bosses who pay too much attention to their marginal employees and little to their great employees. That is an abuse of their support system. We do all of that from having no intention about our support systems. To get their full value, being intentional and deliberate about them will go a long way. For example, the leaders who believe it is lonely at the top have isolated themselves from the kind of support they would need not to feel so lonely. There are also the leaders who believe if you want something done right, you have to do it yourself. These are the leaders who have trouble delegating and not using their support systems well again. I remember working with a group of bank managers who were complaining up a blue streak about how overworked they were and how much work they had to take home with them, as if these were badges of honor. I asked them about their assistant managers and the administrative support that they all had. Well, their response was to complain that they were so undertrained that they often had to do their work for them, which is why they were overworked in the first place. And basically, it would take them less time to do it themselves rather than to correct their work. They seemed really frustrated and upset about this. Maybe they should have taken the time needed to train their staff instead of doing their staff's work for them. Clearly, those bankers had no intention of building an effective support system for themselves to help them get the work of their branch done.
So that's a really interesting perspective, Michael. I mean, I have to say my first reaction is, well, it sounds like the staff simply wasn't doing their job, and that may have been due to a lack of training or lack of clear direction. But if I shift my thinking and I'm like, oh, okay, let's think about the organization as a series of support systems, then that changes my perspective a bit. It's like the staff isn't able to support the bankers because the staff doesn't know the bankers' intentions, because the bankers don't know the intention or what they need from the staff themselves. So that just, it's like I had to kind of shift it a little bit to thinking about the whole organization as a series of support systems.
That's interesting. I would turn what you just said around. The bankers weren't getting good support because they were not letting their support people give it to them. The bankers were not being clear about their expectations from their people, hence their people weren't doing it. The bankers were not expecting very much from their people. In fact, they were expecting very little from their people, so that's what they got. This leads us directly to our second point, connections. An effective support system requires effective connections with those with whom you would want their support. Leaders who do not connect well with their followers will not lead very well for very long. Hence, leaders need to be conscious and deliberate about connecting well with their followers. Those bankers had little connection with their followers, their employees, in terms of giving them the kind of support they needed so that they could get their work done in support of their leader. So,
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. So let's shift and talk about that third aspect of why we tend to ignore support systems.
Sure. This is probably one of the biggest reasons we don't pay much attention to support systems. This is a major issue for many in Western society. Those leaders who have the belief that it is lonely at the top, as often as not, are lonely because they believe that asking for help or support would be a sign of weakness that they dare not admit even to themselves. I've already shared several examples of leaders like Jim Beam who really struggle when it comes to admitting to their teams that they have been part of the problem. The fear of being seen as weak exists in the egos of many leaders. Coming from that angle, I've also told the story about the leader who couldn't get past his ego's own need to be liked when it came to sticking to decisions. Many of us believe that if you are good enough, you can do it by yourself, that you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps. The ego here is evident in the impossibility of the image of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps itself. The idea of leading an organization by oneself is just impossible. That's why you have employees in the first place. That's why you need leaders. That's why you need followers in the first place. Ego issues have caused the downfall of many leaders. Don't be one of them.
Yeah, okay. So let's recap that. There are three major ways our lack of attention to our support system gets in our way as leaders. Intentions. If we as leaders are not aware of our support systems, we don't have any intentions towards our support systems. We're not able to explicitly state what expectations that we have. Connections. If the leaders are not connected to their employees or followers, they will not get the support they need. Pretty straightforward. And ego management. This comes up often when leaders don't want to be seen as weak by asking for help or don't like to be questioned as it impacts their idea of authority, or sometimes their egos just want to be liked by the team and all these things get in the way of sort of really using the people around them, their employees or their followers, as support. And I think that example that you gave about the bankers kind of covers all aspects of this. They complained about their untrained staff, but they had no intention of seeing them as support systems, therefore didn't recognize that their staff needed training, perhaps. They clearly didn't have connections to their staff. In their ego saw their administrative staff as unimportant. They didn't even acknowledge the administrative staff as a part of their support system. Does that sound about right?
You got it.
Okay.
Couldn't have been better.
All right. So in the introduction to this module, you mentioned two types of support systems. Can you say more about these two types of support systems?
Yes. The two types of support systems are personal support systems and critical mass support systems. We need personal support systems to help us with our conscious use of self, to stay conscious about our intentions, connections, and ego management. We need support to help us remember about our human systems and support systems. Through these courses, you will recognize other areas where we need personal support systems to help us manage ourselves effectively. I am very clear that I cannot effectively stay conscious and manage myself well by myself. I need support to help me do that. Now, there are many types of support that might be useful on the personal level, and we have a list from a buddy of mine, Charlie Seashore, who put it together some years ago. Shall we go over them?
Sounds good. Let's do it.
After that, we can talk about critical mass support systems, which will be the topic of our second module in this course.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So here we go. Types of support systems. First one, Role models. Role models are simply people who we admire, respect, and see as competent and confident. These are the people who you would like to be like. For instance, if I get into some situation that I'm not sure what to do, I call up a role model. Okay, what would Edie do if she were in this situation? Because she's a role model of mine. And then, okay, so I know Edie would do X, Y, and Z, so I do it too. Okay. Comrades, people who share your concerns because they're in the same boat. People who strive for similar goals and with whom you share experiences, ideas, and favors. These are people who typically, we see them as understanding what our problems are, and therefore they can be compassionate and helpful. Then there are friends, people who simply provide you with warmth and closeness, who do not judge you. These are people with whom you can share feelings freely and feel totally unself-conscious and just be open and totally honest. Dependables are people that you depend upon in a crisis. Not everyone is dependable in a crisis. I'm dependable in a crisis after I've thought about it for a bit. But some people you can depend upon. Here's a crisis, they're on it right away. Yeah. Those are the people who will provide you with personal assistance and make things available to you, and always seem to be Johnny on the spot.
All right. So if my car breaks down, Michael, I should not call you as a dependable. I may call you as a friend. How about that?
Well, see, I'd have to think about it first.
Okay. Thank you. Enough said.
Yeah. Well, for instance, can I afford the the airfare to California so that I can help you with your car?
That's minor. All right.
Of course.
Friends would do that for friends. I just have to think about it. I love that you're outlining all these different types of personal support system. Hadn't really thought about role models. I had a role model. Her name was Judy, and she was like one of my early leaders when I was younger, and really admired her and the way she brought her strength to every conversation. My first. And the way she was willing to do really hard things like fire a client, which was the most fascinating meeting I have ever been in my life. But yes, and so this makes sense. Let me ask, can you have people in your support system who fit into these multiple categories? Because I have a group of friends who I also think as comrades, and some of them are also dependable. So Can you have people in multiple categories? Okay.
A single person can cover several categories. People can be pretty talented. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. Is there more? Sorry to interrupt, but you have more different types of support systems?
I think there are like 5 more that probably kind of outlined here. Now, keep in mind that this list is not the end all and be all, of the kinds of support that you might want, but it's useful. Let's talk about respecters, people who respect your competence and understand the difficulty and value of your work. People whom you respect, who recognize your skills and who support your self-worth. Interesting. So some people don't realize that they even have respecters in their lives. So it's worth thinking about those. Challengers now, this is an important one. People who will make you stretch and give you other perspectives. People who will challenge your basic assumptions and working principles. People who will ask you about things that you haven't considered, or ask you to reconsider things that maybe don't make as much sense as they might. We often tend to stay away from challengers because they make us think, and some of us can be pretty lazy about thinking. Referral agents is next. Referral agents are people who are the linking pins to needed resources. Charlie Seashore was a good good referral agent. He did not well, if I asked him about something he didn't know, he would almost always know about somebody who might know and would say, give so-and-so a call. He probably knows all about that. I just moved down here to Florida, and I'm constantly asking people, who's a good dentist? Who's a good auto mechanic? I am constantly looking for people who can refer me to people who can give me the services that I need. Charlie calls these next people guides. I call them problem solvers. These are simply the people who can provide you with advice about solving problems and accomplishing your goals. There are probably many people that are willing to be guides. Choose them carefully, because choose people whose advice you will respect. Finally, the straight shooters, people who will provide you with unvarnished feedback for the purpose of supporting you in being more effective in accomplishing your goals, even when you haven't asked for that feedback. At our best, we will have several people available in each category. After all, most people have busy schedules and may be otherwise disinclined to help when we need it most. Then you've got number 2 or number 3 person to go to. You know, some people get upset when they ask for support and they're turned down. Well, try not to do that. Put yourself in their shoes and don't take it personally. Watch that little ego of yours.
You know, as you were talking, Michael, I was reflecting that I should probably make this list and go through it and list on a regular basis, review it, all the people that I have in every different category of my personal support system, all these different categories you've listed, because it's actually a very useful exercise. It reminds you you're not alone in the world. And I think we'll be doing that later. So I just want to say that this file is available as all this list of different types of people in your support system is available as a downloadable PDF. I have a couple more questions, and I think we've answered some of them. You said you can have, do you have to have people in every category? And the other question I have is, do your support systems change over time? And can you provide an example of that?
Sure. Before I go there, I do want to say something about, you mentioned not feeling so alone in the world. You know, that's such a perfect example. Those times when we're feeling we're all by ourselves, that's when we need our support systems the most. And the truth is, we're never by ourselves. We're just being unconscious about the support systems that actually surround us. So thank you for bringing that up. Okay. It is useful to have people in every category. I don't want to make it a must. But yes, it is useful to have someone or 2 or 3 in every category. And our support systems change as our needs change, or I'll say our support systems need to change as our needs change and our circumstances change. I remember when I decided to become a professional organizational psychologist and change agent. My buddies at the time were all great friends. We bowled together. We played pinochle into the late hours. But they were not very useful or interested in the transitions I needed to make to become an organizational psychologist. I needed to and did develop quite a different support system to accomplish my new goals. There's something else to think about. This is very important. When asking for support, be clear about what you're asking for. It could be something on the list, or maybe it's you just want somebody to listen to you and help you think. If you aren't clear about the support you want, people may give you the kind of support they think you need or tend to give from their being on automatic. We actually do the same when people ask us for support, but they aren't being clear about the support they need. We give them the kind of support we think they need, which may or may not be on target.
Now, you said something, and I just wanted to clarify my understanding. We should use this list when we're asking for support, but when also, I think you said something about when people ask us for support, we should use the list to sort of clarify what kind of support they're actually looking for.
Yes. It's like, do you really want me to be a straight shooter now? Do you want me to just listen? Do you want me to give you some advice? Mm-hmm. Tell me what you really want from it.
Right. So if I'm looking for a new job, I'd want a straight shooter to help me think about my strengths and my blind spots, for example. Is that right?
And you might want somebody who is an excellent referral agent.
For sure.
Talk to so-and-so and so-and-so about, people who've got jobs just like the ones you're after.
Cool. So any other final thoughts before we move on to the exercise?
Yeah, just probably at least one more. Once you've made your request and the person has responded positively, negotiate with them the time and place and date for the support to actually occur. In the next course, we'll cover in depth building agreements for success that will also be helpful in us getting agreements for support. When we don't nail down time, place, and date, it tends to just get lost. Everybody says, sure, yes, I'm willing to do it, but if we don't talk about when and where, it just slips everybody's mind and it's gone. It's one of the ways that we can be pretty slippery in terms of not getting the support that we really want.
So thank you. Thank you for that introduction to support systems. And I just want to give an example for people. I had a friend that reached out to me and said, hey, can you support me in rewriting my resume or my online profile? And I said, actually, I can't do that. I don't have the time for it, but I can refer you to someone who would be able to help with that. And so that worked out really well. And they didn't take it personally. And I really didn't, it was really hard for me to find the time to do that at that point. So,
done.
Yeah. So thank you for that introduction to support systems. And I think, just to recap, it starts by recognizing that we have a support system and we need to be aware of our intentions around those support systems. What connections do we have to our people in our support systems, and managing our egos. In personal support system, you talk about the many different ways that you can request support from people, ranging from role models to friends and guides. And when someone asks you for support, get clear on exactly what they're asking for and don't just make an assumption. So thank you, Michael, for that conceptual overview. And coming up next is an exercise.